Hello all film friends. Meet again with Movie Storyline. In this video, we will discuss a film entitled American Hustle, which was released in 2013. This film is based on a true story, which occurred in 1978. Political scandal, high-profile deception, and drama full of intrigue, it's all here. But how complicated is the plot really? And why is this film considered one of David O. Russell's best works? Let's start the storyline. The story begins in April 1978 at the Plaza Hotel in New York. A man is preparing for a meeting. This man's name is Irving Rosenfeld. It was seen that he also checked the surveillance camera in his room. Not long after, two of Irving's friends approached him in the room. Namely, Sidney Prosser, who disguised herself as Lady Edith Greensley, and her partner Richie DeMassa. Richie looks annoyed with Irving and ruins the hair he had prepared beforehand. However, Edith carefully tidied up Irving's hair. Even though he was annoyed, Irving continued with the plan he had made. And the movie begins. The three of them then went into a room with the suitcase in Richie's hand. It turned out that a mayor was waiting for him there. They have also prepared surveillance cameras. Suddenly, without warning, Richie handed over the suitcase. The mayor was surprised and said he only wanted to meet a sheik. Then he left the room. Irving blamed Richie for rushing to hand over the suitcase. Without any guilt, Richie asks Irving to persuade the mayor to return to the room. Holding back all his feelings, Irving then chased after the mayor. The scene then rewinds to tell Irving's journey to the meeting. In his childhood, Irving chose to become a con artist, after seeing his father being conned over and over again. As an adult, he also inherited his father's glass business. To increase his business sales, he used a little trick. Irving also has several branches of laundry places. At a party, Irving meets a girl named Sidney.
I was broke, fearless.
Long story short, Irving and Sidney fall in love with each other. One day, Irving takes Sidney to one of his laundry branches and gives her some fancy clothes that the owner didn't pick up. He also invited Sidney to his secret room. There, Irving reveals his new business of defrauding people in need of money and claims to have a very rich friend who can lend money to anyone. The trick of the scam is to ask for payment up front to get easy money. Irving invites Sidney to join his new business. But Sidney looked disappointed and left the room.
Sidney, I'm sorry, that was...
Irving was so nervous. But suddenly, Sidney returns to the room, as a sign that she accepts Irving's invitation. From here, Sidney plays the role of Lady Edith Greensley. They spent their days together deceiving people who wanted to borrow money. They also managed to sell many imitation paintings from Irving's collection. They are always together in business and love.
It doubled, then it tripled. Your number. Correction.
But it turns out that Irving already has a wife and children. But his small family did not go well, because his wife, Rosalind, suffered from depression. Rosalind always locks herself in her house and doesn't care what Irving does out there. Irving always asked his wife to be more open and get out of the house so she could make a friend. He couldn't divorce his wife because he still thought about his child. But it turns out that Sidney also knows about all these things.
Come on.
He might say she was my...
Until one day, Richie DeMassa came and wanted to borrow money from Irving. It seems that he is very familiar with Sidney, who introduced herself as Edith Greensley. Seeing this, Irving was so jealous. But Richie handed Irving a check. Shortly after, several police officers came in and arrested them both. It turns out Richie DeMasso is an FBI agent. They were both arrested on charges of fraud they had been committing. They were detained for several days in separate rooms. Here Richie influences Sydney and says that Irving is only using Sydney to protect his wife and children. Richie also said that he really likes Sydney and doesn't want her to go to jail. Sydney just kept quiet hearing that.
What if you're not? What if you're not on that list? What if you're not even on that list?
After that, Richie immediately met Irving. Richie said that they would both be cleared of all charges if they would help him catch the white-collar crime and arrest 4 criminals after they got out. Sydney was so scared and asked Irving to run away abroad, but Irving refused because he couldn't leave his child. Hearing this, Sydney was very surprised. She remembered Richie's words that Irving didn't really love her and was just using her. But Irving is able to convince Sydney to go along with Richie's plan. With tears in her eyes, Sydney leaves Irving with much anxiety.
Mr. Mastermind.
The next day, Irving and Sydney meet Richie. Richie begins to formulate a plan by asking Irving's partner to become a sheik as bait who is ready to fund various projects. And their first target was Carl Elway, a fraud like Irving. There they met Arthur, Carl's man. Seeing Irving with the sheik, Arthur then took them to Carl.
Could I? What the hell many times I gotta tell you? We can't meet the sheik. Could I raise?
Carl was so curious about the sheik and wanted to find a business partner for the sheik. Sydney and Richie also play their respective roles. Unexpectedly, Carl offers something bigger, namely the Atlantic City redevelopment project in the city. A building that will house the largest casino business in America. Carl also offered someone who could help legalize the project, namely Carmen Polito, the mayor of Camden. He is a very powerful politician in the state of New Jersey, United States. Carmen wanted to legalize gambling in the city to provide jobs, but he was unsuccessful in finding investors to finance the redevelopment of Atlantic City. And Richie and his friends get a chance and an opportunity. Richie then reported the plan to his superior, Thorson. Thorson doubted that this operation would be successful, as Carmen Polito was known as an honest mayor and was well loved by her people. Richie also asked for $2 million to make Carmen Polito believe that the sheik was really a rich man. But once again, Thorson did not agree to the plan.
Go do your job.
Started, shot the whole thing down.
Unexpectedly, Sydney has an acquaintance, an administrative officer at the FBI named Brenda who handles finances at the FBI. Brenda was very enthusiastic about being involved in this operation and was willing to transfer $2 million. Hearing this, Anthony Amato, the head of the FBI, was amazed by this operation. Incidentally, Anthony is a very ambitious person and wants his name to be famous. Thorson couldn't do anything. But it turns out, Irving does not agree with Richie's plan to trap a politician, because he knows it is very dangerous and too ambitious. But Richie kept threatening, so Irving couldn't do anything. Then they had a meeting with Carmen Polito, like at the beginning of the film. Carmen was so surprised when Richie suddenly handed him a suitcase of money. Irving chases after Carmen to persuade him to accept the sheik's offer. With Irving's coaxing, Carmen finally agreed to reschedule the meeting.
I really apologize.
All right, thank you.
No.
I'll deal with you directly.
Son, you and me.
I like you. Eye to eye. We can do business together.
Hearing this, Richie's ambitions became increasingly frustrated. He changes his plans again and wants to use Carmen to trap the politicians involved in bribery in the project. And once again, Irving rejected the plan. But he had to do it anyway, because he didn't want to go to jail. And the meeting arrived. But this time, Irving came with his wife, Rosalind. Carmen also came with his wife, Dolly Polito. Rosalind and Dolly look so close.
redecorating. This drug? No, it's just because I'm planning.
On the other hand, Sydney contacts Richie and invite him to seek entertainment. They both went to a nightclub and danced passionately in the midst of the sparkling night. Suddenly, Richie wants to make love with Sydney in the toilet. But Sydney refused and said that she wanted to do it because love is not just lust.
That's when we fuck.
At the meeting place, Irving and Carmen have already discussed their business. Carmen said his goal in rebuilding Atlantic City was to provide jobs and bring the city back from its slump. Hearing this, everyone there was touched, including Irving Rosenfeld. Then they sang together very intimately. The next morning, Irving and Carmen had breakfast together. Carmen again expressed his hopes and the benefits of this project for the people he loves so much. Carmen then gave Irving a microwave as a gift, which at that time not just anyone could own. Here Irving sees the sincerity of Carmen Polito as a friend and mayor who is struggling to build his city.
A new friend.
Then Richie asked Thorson to rent a jet for the meeting between Sheik and Carmen Polito to be more convincing.
You let him walk to the curb at JFK.
Well, that's not how it works.
You can have a jet for an hour, but takes off and lands at Teterboro.
I got the jet?
You got the jet.
The day of the meeting arrived. Richie and Sydney looked closer. Seeing that, Irving was so jealous. But Sydney said that for her, Richie was nothing. She just wanted to get away from all of this.
I'm not Rosalind. I'm not gonna put up with that shit.
Irving was so shocked when he saw that the one who would play the role of Sheik was not his friend, but an FBI person who couldn't even speak Arabic. But because it was already too late, Irving had to accept it.
Speak any Arabic?
Yeah. Assalamu alaikum.
That's it?
No, I have a couple phrases.
Finally, Carmen meets the Sheik. He was so impressed that he prepared a party for the Sheik in Atlantic City.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, Rosalind looks annoyed with Irving because she was not allowed to come to the party for various reasons. In the midst of their argument, Irving gets a call from Richie for the next plan. Unexpectedly, Rosalind eavesdropped on their conversation.
Off the extension.
I'm not on it.
Look, don't call her again.
In the end, Irving went with Rosalind to the party, while Richie came with Sydney. It turns out that Rosalind already knows Sydney as her husband's mistress. She looks so upset. Carmen shows Sheik Abdullah every room in Atlantic City. Irving was so surprised when Carmen said that members of the American Mafia also came to the party. Tension ensues when Carmen asks Irving to greet them, because whether he likes it or not, he will be doing business with the Mafia, and he refuses. Irving thought, if he went too deep, he would face a huge risk. Suddenly, Rosalind approached them, followed by the rest of the group.
Scared of? Those guys over there? They don't scare me. I'm not scared.
I love this.
Richie also introduced Sheik Abdullah to them. What's even more surprising is that one of the most ruthless mafia in America also came to the party and wanted to meet Sheik Abdullah. Carmen takes the entire group to meet the mafia, named Victor Teligio, the most sadistic mafia in the Americas. Rosalind did not join the group, but instead stayed with the other mafia members in the room.
Be having fun. Maybe it'll be contagious, huh?
Victor Teligio explains how the casino business works and thanks Carmen Polito for wanting to legalize casinos in the city. However, he advised that this business should not be disturbed by any party as long as it is an American citizen. Tensions arose again when Victor Teligio asked the Sheik to speak Arabic.
I think what is, let him speak for himself.
Irving and his friends were confused, But this fake sheik suddenly spoke Arabic and made Victor Teligio believe him. In the end, Teligio asked Carmen to send $10 million in 2 weeks to show his seriousness.
Florida will feel deeply disrespected, and so will I.
On the other hand, Sidney approaches Rosalind. They argued. Sidney said that Irving only loved his son, not Rosalind. Hearing this, Rosalind was so sad and left Sidney. Luckily, one of the mafia lent his shoulder to Rosalind.
Sun from shining, what makes the that rustles through the tree.
After that night, Richie went to Sidney's house. He contacted Thorson, requested a luxury hotel for the meeting, and ensnared the congressman who would grant citizenship to the sheik, of course with bribes. But Thorson again refused Richie's request. Richie was frustrated, then hung up the phone. To calm down, Richie invites Sidney to make love. But his desire was stopped when Sidney said her real name, which he previously knew as Edith Greensley. Hearing that, Richie was so shocked, because all this time he knew her name was Edith Greensley, an aristocrat from England. Richie became even more frustrated.
You not fucking
In the midst of that, Irving suddenly came with a gun in his hand. He said that Richie's ambitions had taken him too far. Irving is very worried, because this time politicians and mafia have fallen into his trap. Richie also threatened and said that if his operation was exposed, the mafia would not target FBI agents, but Irving and his family. Amidst the tension, Richie contacted Thorson again, asking for what he needed. But Thorson again refused the request. Richie was so furious, he left them full of worry. Sidney appears to calm Irving down and begins to plan something to save themselves and their family.
You're the best we've ever done.
On the other hand, Richie approaches Thorson, then beats him up. Due to this incident, Thorson reported Richie to the head of the FBI, Anthony Amato. Thorson also expressed Richie's wishes. Unexpectedly, Anthony is very impressed with the plan and provides what Richie needs to catch the congressman who will accept bribes.
Taking bribes. Okay, you come back to me. I'm proud of you.
The day of the meeting arrived. Richie set up the surveillance camera very carefully. On the other hand, Carmen started contacting members of Congress. Then, one by one, the congressman fell into Richie's trap.
I'm excited to be here. Oh, John, please. This brings...
But Irving doesn't seem to be comfortable doing that. He feels sorry and wants to save Carmen.
This needs to happen.
Elsewhere, Rosalind takes her son to school. Unexpectedly, Peter, a mafia who had lent him his shoulder at the party, came to pick him up. They also had lunch together. Unintentionally, Rosalind leaked Irving's plan that she heard on the phone at that time. Hearing that, Peter was so surprised. Then he promised to take Rosalind to Miami. He hurriedly left Rosalind. Peter went to pick up Irving and Carmen somewhere. Irving was almost killed, but with all his persuasion, they were both saved in the end.
Is it true? Is it true what you said about your wife?
After returning home, Irving was furious and scolded Rosalind. Here, Ing reveals all his plans, but Rosalind says what's in her heart, that she will run away to Miami with Peter. Rosalind wants Irving to grow up and wants to divorce him.
And I think that both of us will be a lot happier if we get a divorce.
Necessity.
After that, Irving and Sidney started to carry out their plan. Richie also goes with them to meet Victor Teligio and give him the money they promised. But Victor was not there, they only met his lawyer, Alphonse Simone. They also play their respective roles. Sidney also recorded the incident.
And we'll throw in the cost. Mr. Villaggio, unfortunately, was called out of town on business.
Oh, that's not good.
Somebody off. We'll pay somebody off.
And finally, the money is transferred to an account.
The funds have transferred.
The money's been wired.
Anthony and his team were so happy to welcome Richie's success because he had managed to ensnare the biggest mafia in America. On the other hand, Irving meets Carmen Polito. He revealed all the plans he had been working on so far. Carmen was very surprised and threw Irving out. And Irving says that he is his best friend and wants to fix everything.
Deposit and take that money, you piece of shit! I was gone!
Then Irving and Sidney go to the FBI office to meet Anthony. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Richie and his friends are furious because they failed to catch Victor Teligio. It turns out that the office they went to was just a manipulation by Irving, and Alphonse Simone was not Teligio's lawyer, but rather Irving's colleague to trap Richie. Richie is also threatened with losing the money they have transferred. But Irving could return the money if Carmen Polito's sentence is reduced.
And a reduced sentence for Carmine Polito.
After the incident, Richie was fired from the FBI. The congressmen involved were arrested, including Carmen Polito. However, Carmen received a reduced sentence from the FBI. Meanwhile, Victor Teligio was not arrested because Irving and Rosalind had already leaked the plan. Irving and Sidney lived together and opened a gallery. They also left their old habits behind. Meanwhile, Rosalind went with Peter to Miami. And the film is over. This film is a very complete film, where friendship, romance, scandals, and even government bureaucrats are summarized in this film. From this film, we can learn that something that starts from something bad will not work out well. We can take Richie's ambition as an example. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to be happy. See you again in the next story.